Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Say Report. I'm your host, Devin Decker, and joining me, my host companion, big round of applause for Mr. Sejan Sarawik. Sejan?
I didn't know where you were going with that. I thought you were gonna call me Big Round something. I was like, what? What are you doing?
The only thing I would call you is Paulie. I'd call you Big Round Paulie.
Big Round Paulie. Oh man.
And
What's going on, everybody?
That's because I watched the greatest opening in cinema history, and you know, you can't look at Burt Young and not think Sejan Sarawik.
Oh god.
So if you've never seen Sejan in real life, I recommend looking at Burt Young. Pretty much Rocky 3 is the epitome of the Sejan-ness.
Great.
And you'll have an idea. Obviously, Sejan is younger and a bit more handsome, as if it were even possible to be more handsome than Burt Young.
He goes. And he's trying to save it. Let's see if he can.
But really, no. I mean, I felt bad saying it, but I like, oh, look, Sejan's in this movie, because Dale's never seen Rocky 3. The extent of Dale's Rocky knowledge is Rocky, Rocky Balboa, and both Creed movies. And even then, she doesn't remember Rocky Balboa.
Oh, really? That's such a good one. Yeah, but I guess it was a long time ago. That was back when there was a fucking Sony store in the Providence Place Mall. Because I remember watching most of that movie on the Sony TVs. It was like the movie that they always had playing to show how how good the refresh rate was.
Yeah, and the thing I remember about Rocky Balboa, it makes me cry every time. I'm not even lying about this. Is the scene in the very beginning where they visit Adrian's grave. Spoilers for the opening of Rocky 6, technically. And, you know, Rocky is so sad and everything, but Paulie, you know, your namesake, because your real name is Paul. Everybody, Sejan's real name is Paul.
Oh, God. Yeah, but the secret's out. What are you doing, you fool?
Now,
I've been in hiding
now
for so
you'll
long.
never be able to take the firstborn of every princess in the land, Sejan. Rumple Sejan.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, his name's Sejan for real. But, you know, Rocky's all sad, and Burt Young just breaks down. He's like, I was no good to a rock. I was no good. And it's just like, holy shit. This movie, they're like, forget about Rocky 5.
Yeah.
This is going to be a good movie.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Rocky Balboa is like, honestly, that's the best one since the first, as far as I'm concerned.
I don't know. I love Rocky 4. And Rocky 3.
4 is... Rocky 3 and Rocky 4 hold the same place in my heart that, like, some, like, mid-tier James Bond movies do. You know what I mean? Like a Timothy Dalton James Bond. Like, I love it. Don't get me wrong. I will watch the hell out of it. I won't hold it up as, like, a good example of, like, what that series does well. Rocky and Rocky Balboa are what that series does really well.
Yeah, I will agree with that. But I have to, honestly, just the opening of Rocky 3 tells such a story that it's so good. Like, if I ever, like, not gun to my head, right? We don't need guns in this hypothetical. But if I were asked for, like, top 5 openings in cinema history, that would be up there. Because it shows so much in such a little time. It shows enough to, like, that, if it were expanded out and not just a montage over Eye of the Tiger, could be a movie onto itself. But yet, the fact that it's just brief scenes, you get so much from every single character. And it's awesome.
Man,
it really is.
So now we have to do this now. What are your other 4?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't.
Well, obviously the Player, right? Isn't that the one that opens up with like the 10-minute one shot, right?
Yeah,
like,
Player's a really good opening to a movie.
That's got a really good opening shot for sure. Let's see, what else do we have? What's a good heist one? Because those always have really good openings, right? They always open up like in the middle of it.
Sometimes, I mean,
Deadpool's got a really good opener with the fight on the bridge.
Which one?
Deadpool.
Yeah,
the whole first 20 minutes of that is really just cold open.
That's a good point. I don't know. I haven't put a thought into it. Like, that's the thing. But I can definitely say, like, my father watched the end of Rocky 2, and I'm like, that's fine. The end of Rocky 2 is, like, the best part of Rocky 2. Spoilers, he wins. But then he's like, oh, and Rocky 3's coming on. And he goes to change it. I'm like, no, 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 no. We have to watch that opening. Because that opening is just really, really good. But I don't know. I haven't put the same amount of thought into openings, to be completely honest with you.
I could probably give you my number one right now.
I'd love to hear it.
Raiders of the Lost Ark. Because like it gives you everything you need to know about him, and in that moment, it even has a turnabout in the middle of it. It has an escape. It has a chase scene. Like it is everything that you want from an Indiana Jones adventure instilled in like 15 minutes.
And that's sort of the point too. I feel like Steven Spielberg, when he approached that, was like, I'm used to actions as serials. Like my action adventure stories were in serialized storytelling. So really, that whole thing with Indiana Jones feels like an episode of a serial that you would see. And then like that it expands from there and becomes a whole movie. That is wonderful, like filmmaking right there. You know what? I will give it to the opening of Jaws. That's probably on my list.
Okay, yeah.
And not just because there's a naked lady in it, but because like it distills out everything that this movie is about to be with like very minimal dialogue.
Yeah, man. Spielberg. You
So
know,
apparently
you ever
it's
want to see
Spielberg. He understands
storytelling too, right? Like go back and watch some old Spielberg films, man.
Old Spielberg films sounds like such a weird sentence, but like Jaws is from 1976.
Yeah, man. Well, and like you could definitely talk about phases of Spielberg, right? Like I don't want to knock the guy too much because I still think he's a fantastic filmmaker, but like the last few years have not been the same as the first few for him, right? Like
I would disagree with that. The fact of the matter is that Steven Spielberg, I'd say round about 1990, had acid thrown in his face, but it only damaged half of it. And that fractured him into two distinct Spielbergs.
Okay, all right.
The family comedy blockbuster Spielberg and Oscar Spielberg.
Yeah.
And they're forced to reside within the same body. Because you're not wrong when you say that these last few years may have seemed off. I mean, Ready Player One, I'll say that. But along those same lines, Bridge of Spies. So he's always been, I can't think of another director in that same, like, pantheon who walks the line between highly profitable film and, like, fun movie that he just wants to make.
Right.
Especially if you consider that in 1993, you have fucking Jurassic Park and Schindler's List come out.
Right. Oh, man. See, old Spielberg shit. You gotta go back and you gotta see it.
Yeah, it's worth watching. It's worth celebrating his entire pantheon of cinematography or cinema. I don't know. I lost the thread there a little bit. He's an auteur.
Filmography.
Yeah, filmography.
Yeah. Well, it's weird. You think about him as an auteur, but he's also one with a $300 million budget every time he goes out, right? So, like, what is that? Yeah.
But he has a $300 million budget because he's earned that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Jaws kind of sells that.
Yeah. Oh, you mean the movie that created the blockbuster? I will still, it always passes through my mind, the guy sitting behind us for Ready Player One, and one goes to his friend and he's like, I'm really excited to see Steven Spielberg do like a blockbuster, because I can't think of any time that he's done like a blockbuster film. And under my breath and under her breath, Dale and I both say, fucking Jaws, you idiot.
Everything that he must have been joking, right? He must have been joking.
Well, his friend, not joking, decidedly not joking, goes, Steven Spielberg did Jaws. That's like the first blockbuster. And he's like, no, but I mean like since Jaws, he hasn't really done a blockbuster. And then his friend's like, what are you talking about? So I don't know if it was like, I know that sometimes I will do that game. We've played that game where one of us is like a Philistine who doesn't understand something that we clearly have a lot of knowledge about.
I like how hard you're avoiding just saying it. You mean he was being a troll?
I don't really use that word ever, but I don't do it. I try not to do that in public. Like I'll do that on a long car ride. I find that pretending I don't know anything about topics I am like well versed in on a long car ride, that can be a good way to pass the time.
For you.
Yeah, no, I guess that's true. It's not really
on the
fun for
receiving
anybody
end of
else.
this.
I know we'll have to ask Dale next time we have her on the show.
Hall and who now? No, come on.
Oh, Hall and Garfunkel.
I'm not a big fan of folk music.
But this is not what I wanted to talk about. I mean, it makes sense that we talked about one of the greatest openings in our opening, but I feel like we are on lockdown, right? The world is in the throes of a pandemic, and yet I feel like there's still so much to talk about, not COVID-19 related.
Oh yeah, man. Well, I was kind of hoping we could go from blockbusters right into the demo that you did this weekend.
Oh, well, yeah, that's fine. Resident Evil 3 Remake. We are 2 weeks away from its release. Technically, we're 17 days away from its release. April 3rd is when it comes out. Well, it's not 2 weeks. It's 17 days.
Yep.
2.5 weeks, I suppose. The demo dropped on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Steam. So I, being somebody who legitimately, I'm not trolling here, had no knowledge or love for the Resident Evil series. When Resident Evil 2 Remake came out, I rented it from Redbox on a whim and instantly fell in love with it.
Right. Yes, if you want to take part in this saga, we recorded it all in real time. There's about 2 or 3 months where we don't stop talking about Resident Evil 2.
Yeah, it's a thing. It's a scene, man. That starts with the last episode of January 2019. And the first episode of February 2019, and it goes through till about April. Whenever we finally got to play Kingdom Hearts 3.
and we had to put a moratorium. Literally, we're like, we got to stop talking about Resident Evil 2.
Yes. So, I mean, Resident Evil, it is tied to this. I mean, it's tied to this podcast in the fact that I still have the dangling promise to talk about, to finish Resident Evil 4. I haven't done that. And it's just because it's not as good as the remakes. I'll wait till Resident Evil 4 remake, which there's no way that that's happening, right? Like,
I think that it'd be stupid of them to not do something with it, but does it get the same hardcore remake? I don't think so. I don't know, man. I don't know. These remakes have been doing real well. We'll see what happens with 3, the reception on 3. But even right now, people are very pleased.
Yes. But before we do that, actually, just a brief, speaking of unfulfilled promises, about 2 weeks back, I talked about a Denver politician running for Attorney General of the state of Colorado. And I gave his name as Ken Block. It's actually Ken Buck. So I wanted to make sure that, the ire for that man was focused in the correct direction. It's very similar names, kind of. But I did want to say that. I said I would look it up and make sure that I gave the proper. And it's been sitting as a tab open on my desktop, and I just didn't get into it last week because we had more important things to talk about. But back to Raccoon City. So I played the Resident Evil 3 demo. Have you played it yet, Sejan?
No, I have not played it yet because we talked about this. I am on the fence as to whether or not I want to. Unlike with Resident Evil 2, where I needed to see, I just needed to see. Now that I have kind of that Band-Aid ripped off, and I understand that they're not the same game, but now that I have that sense of I know what the visuals are going to look like, I know what style, I guess I should say, they're really pushing. I'm really, really, really holding off on this one. 3 was such a weird one for me when it first came out anyway, that I'm kind of holding on to some stuff for myself to surprise myself. 3
was the first Resident Evil game I asked for. I didn't care about 1 or 2, they didn't do it, but at that point that it was coming around, 1999, I believe, I had subscriptions to every gaming magazine, right? There's a friggin' dead horse. There's the dodo of the episode, is the gaming magazine. Mm-hmm. But I would have 4 or 5 come to the house every month. And even then, do you remember, am I the only one who did this? And I'm asking everybody, I'm not just asking CJ. When I would go to the supermarket, primarily Stop and Shop, they had a book section that was kind of bigger than it had to be.
Yeah, yeah. For a grocery store, yes, I still go to ours from time to time. What's the
Well,
catch there?
I would often either grab a book and read it in the time I was at the supermarket, or I would pick up a gaming magazine and I'd peruse it, and then like at the end I would just end up buying it. I mean, that's how I found out about E3, 1995. I was interested in the Reloaded picture that was on the cover of GamePro, June '95. And I bought it, and that was like really the one that started me down the path of buying gaming magazines. Was that first Game Bro that I
was
read
all
to death?
Disney Adventures all the way. That was like,
Oh, I had DA Adventures, of course. What
yes.
the? I want all of the DA Adventures comics to go up somewhere.
That would be awesome.
They don't all need to go up, but if they do not put up the story of the Soul Gem, the like red gem that crossed over through all of the series.
Yeah, the different
Let's
ones.
talk. We are big fucking fans of DuckTales 2017. And
We are.
at this, well, are we? Are you not a fan of DuckTales
No,
2017?
no. I'm agreeing.
Yeah, there
I'm
was a
agreeing.
question mark at the end there, Ron Burgundy. I don't know if you intended it, but that's how it sounded.
What now? Okay.
Hi,
All right.
Siege and Cerulean? No, you're Paul.
Oh God.
But yeah, so they have shown, we saw at the Comic-Con 2019 presentation, the picture that showed a lot of Disney Afternoon characters in it, like a lot. Like I'm pretty sure Kit Cloud Kicker, that's a hard name to say, and I'm glad we have the explicit tag, because that's a tongue twister name that now I'm thinking that they were trying to get away with something with Kit Cloud Kicker.
Oh God. Oh Disney. All right, but yeah. So they're bringing it back.
Yeah, they're bringing back all these other characters, like I can't think of the name of the thing from Rescue Rangers, but their little like airship was there, and Kit Cloud Kicker looking like Baloo. So if they're gonna introduce all these characters, DuckTales 2017 is the perfect like canvas to tell that whole story. Because you already have Gizmo Duck and Darkwing, so all you need to do is add in Goof Troop, Rescue Rangers, and Tailspin, and we've seen the images that prove that it's going to happen.
Well, and we know Tailspin is already part of this universe because we had Don Carnage.
Yes, and Cape Suzette was mentioned in the first episode, right along with Spoonerville. So it'd be great. It'd be great if we did that. But back to Resident Evil 3 Remake. I'm sorry. You got me excited by bringing up Disney Adventures. You know what that does to me.
Hey, man.
So Resident Evil 3 Remake, as convinced as much as I loved 2, the reveal that Resident Evil 3 Remake was coming out, it made me a little bit nervous. And I'll be the first person to admit that. And the reason why is it was a lot of first-person perspective in that reveal trailer.
Oh, yeah.
And since Resident Evil 7 is all first-person, I needed to, like, confirm that this game wasn't going to be first-person.
Yeah. No, I get you, because that's a completely different experience than 2, for sure.
And I mean, I will admit that I'm not a huge fan of first-person. I've definitely gotten into it. I'm a little bit more comfortable with them. But I like being able to control the character, not supposed to be the character. It's weird. It's just how I like to play video games, though. Yeah. So, of course, I wanted to try out the demo. And I try out the demo, and I'm having a good time walking around. And Dale was there with me. I don't know if they talked about it on the show, because she won't play it. Resident Evil still freaks her out a little bit. And I understand why. It's freaky. These new ones do a really good job building an atmosphere and freaking you out. But she did sit and watch me play the demo, and she will attest that there were more than like a handful of times, more times than like I would care to admit on my podcast, where I got legitimately frightened and jump scared and screamed playing through this demo.
I'm excited to hear that, because one of the big things that was really kind of thrown at Nemesis when it first came out was that they were getting too far away from the scary. And then that title ends up getting completely usurped by five. Like really, five is the one that really gets blamed for that now. But I do remember at the time that there were fans of the series that were a little miffed that they were going in this like action gunplay direction. Um, but I think after seeing two, and especially the remake of two, the way that they handled the balance of that, I'm not too worried about it in this one. I'm just glad to hear hear that confirmed.
I mean, and also, if you've played the game before, Siegen told me, so I'm imagining it's up to this point, because we did have this discussion. And he mentioned, did you get a fire hose and put out some fire? And I'm like, yeah, I did that. That's what the demo is.
Yeah.
So if you've played the game, I mean, like, semi-spoilers, do you meet up with Nemesis in that time in the original game?
Oh yeah, you meet Nemesis almost immediately when you first get there, and there's some stuff with like other Stars members. You get a little bit more of a feel for like what the story is. I imagine for this demo that they've pulled a lot of the like context out. Am I wrong about that?
Yeah, because I feel like this game, in my memory, starts with Jill like just coming home from the mansion incident. I can't remember the name of the mansion. But
Spencer Mansion.
Yeah, but it starts at her apartment, and where the demo starts with her after she's been rescued by one of the hired mercenaries to like try to get survivors out of the city.
Okay.
So like I feel like this is not the exact opening of the game, but it is like a good moment where where she's just getting her bearings with the fact that zombies are now in Raccoon City.
So think of it this way: with the Resident Evil 2 demo, correct me if I'm wrong,
I
but
never
it basically
played the Resident Evil 2 demo. I will be honest with you. So...
Okay, I'm pretty sure that the demo for Resident Evil 2, that it dropped you into the police station like immediately. Like that's where it started. So all of the stuff with like meeting Claire and everything beforehand, you didn't see any of that. And I think that that's the same thing that they did here. Is it sounds like what they've done is they've given you the beginning of the game, but there is like a good amount of like cold open that you don't, that, again, context that they're not giving you because they want to keep stuff kind of under their hat. And I'm happy to hear that because there is some pretty important Resident Evil stuff that happens in this game. I think that's one of the big things that I'm also very interested in, is that like for a lot of people, Resident Evil 2 right now, I think is like the only Resident Evil game that they've played. I don't think that you're alone in really being like kind of your grounding for what the rest of the series really is now, right? Like we talked even about like the story elements into and about how they kind of peeled away some of the stuff that kind of separated Claire's story from Leon's story, and very much in this remake they very much made it like, okay, these stories can actually coexist. Like it isn't an either or. Like things that happen in one actually do kind of affect the other, and the ending of it, oh, it all comes together, right? It kind of diamonds out, and then it comes back together right at the end. And I feel like because of that, they could have very easily kind of gone in their own direction with 3, or at least like continued on that path. But there's some like definitive shit in 3 that really needs to be there. That like I'm excited to see how they handle it. You know, the way that certain characters show up or don't show up and things like that. So I think that that's what they're hiding from you right now in the demo, and that's good. I mean, like there should be something left for you to discover when you play.
Right. What it felt like, it literally felt like one of the Survivor stories, the demo, and I'm like, this is good because like the Survivor stories is pretty much, super saturated Resident Evil.
Right.
Like you're thrown into the thick of it, and this one it's a little slower than those because they're sort of after game content, the Survivor stories.
Right.
So you should know what the game is, but it does give you like a little bit to learn, how to dodge and why you would want to dodge. But yeah, so the thing that really got me is, and this is spoilers for a demo of a game. Again, I don't know. Is when you go through the donut shop, you get your hose, and then you go back through the donut shop to leave, and there's Nemesis standing right there. Like, that freaked me out, because I didn't think they were going to show him in this demo. And I'm
Excellent.
And I'm just like, that was awesome. Like, that blew out any expectations that I have, and oh my god, this guy is frightening, and he is unlike anything that I have dealt with up to this point. Because that first run-through of the game, the run through of the demo, I was taking my time. I was like experimenting with weapons. I was seeing the durability of the zombies versus the hand knife. The hand knife. It's just a knife. Versus the knife.
Versus the foot knife. Much more dangerous.
No, the foot knife would be awesome. That would break Resident Evil. Because you would just kick everything on the ground. Where like you actually need to get in close. And it took like 25 swings of the knife to kill the first zombie that I came up against.
Right.
And I'm like, that's a lot. That's more than I expected.
It's not a viable weapon. Does it, I guess, does it break? Like
no,
it didn't
it is an infinite knife.
Okay.
And that is they're like, we want it to feel like all you can rely on is this knife. If you squander all of your other materials, we wanted it to feel like you had one thing you could always rely on.
Yeah.
And I think that cool. Definitely plays into the fact that this does feel like more of an open world. It was impressive to me how big a shift the game was from being contained into the police house to actually just walking the streets of Raccoon City.
Yeah, man. I mean, for me, it reminds me a lot of the feeling I had the first time I entered Arkham City versus Arkham Asylum, and like the ability to like go into places that or go, all over the map in a way that I wasn't really used to. And I can definitely see that can be like jarring.
It was less jarring. I need to go back to the demo, is what I need to say. Because, like, I've since learned that there's a whole lot more to do than what I experienced in my first 23 minutes with the game. Because once I had that fire hose, I'm like, oh, I should go back and use that with the fire hydrant. And then that's the end of the demo. And, I got a cool interaction with Nemesis. I got to see, like, the zombies kind of mutate and transform after interacting with him. Like, it gave me a good idea of it. But now I want to explore more, and I want to see the city, from the ground level without, like, a thing. Because after I did the 23 minutes, I went back and did it again and was able to cut 20 minutes off of my time.
That's nuts. That is nuts to me. I mean, it shouldn't surprise me, considering the way that you were running 2 by the end of it, and I know that people can run the entirety of 2 now in like 10 or 15 minutes, but like, yeah, that's just mind-blowing to me that you were able to get through that demo in 3 minutes, under 3 minutes, right?
Yeah, well, because then after that, Dale, again, like, she's a lot of the story because she's the one who was the person who pressured me to do better. She's like, yeah, I think you could do better than that. Not for the 3-minute one. That was like, I'm like, oh, now that I know what the goal of this demo is, I wonder how quickly I can get to the objectives and complete them. But then after I did it in 3:44, she's like, you could do it in about a minute. I believe in you. And no one has done it in a minute. I believe the world record is 1:48. Minute 48 for this.
That's still crazy. But yeah.
I think I could get to 2 minutes. With stuff that I've learned and with like perfect dodges of zombies. Nice. But because she did that, I did like 10 more runs optimizing that route to get to my PB, which is 2 minutes 45 seconds. Deathless.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That is awesome though.
And
yeah, man.
And that feeling is what like is driving me to get this game when it comes out now. Because there are some
crazier. What's crazier about that is like that should almost be the point, right? Like if you consider what we know about the story so far, and what I mean, is like she's trying to get the fuck out of that city. So like getting out ASAP. It's not like with Leon when he's like coming into town and he's investigating because he doesn't know what happened, right? Like he's trying to get to the bottom of things. Like Jill knows what's happening and Jill wants to get the fuck out of Dodge.
Right. So it makes sense, and it was good to see that even this little section of the game had places where, like, you could optimize it. And, yeah. But that being said, there are some changes that, like, made me a little uncomfortable. I don't like the new inventory system. It's not... I really liked it in Resident Evil 2. It just felt, like, easy to work with. And this one, it kind of looks like a computer. Like, you have a little mouse that moves over the items, and I'm like, well, that's weird. Why are you doing that? But it's not a finished product. So
I wonder if they're going to do the Tetris thing.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah,
because
but then that interface makes no sense.
Yeah. But I don't think the Tetris thing is going to happen because I got a shotgun. You get a shotgun in the demo if you collect all the items that allow you to get a shotgun. And that's cool, right? Like that's built into the demo that way.
Yeah, that could just be a demo thing.
That's
it
true,
might not be.
But and the shotgun only takes one slot. Of course, there's no way, as far as I know, if there is, because there's a safe that I didn't know about. And last night I figured out where it was, and then I'm like, oh, I know where the combination is for this because I noticed it. But I'm like, where, I guess that's for the game. Like, I guess that's an answer for when the game is there, because my favorite part about it, and I don't know if it is just like a demo thing or if it will be a part of the game, is there are these comically large, bright yellow locks on.
No, that sounds like it sounds like it's the locks that were in 2 and 7. They weren't much in 2, but they were a lot in 7 that you have to do with like bolt cutters, right?
No, you can't open them at all. You can't even interact with them.
I thought you were talking about the big yellow chains around
no.
door
Like
handles.
the big yellow chains are there, and you use the bolt cutters. That's how you get the shotgun and how you get ammo for the shotgun, which is nice. Like it tells you this is a part of the game in the demo. But no, they're these comically. They look. I'm trying to think. They look like they're made out of Duplo pieces. It's like the lock part, like the actual bar, is bright white, and then it's a yellow, like bright yellow. You'd think it's made of plastic lock with like a white button in the middle. And I don't know if that's going to be something that you eventually find a way to unlock, or if it's like just for the demo to let you know you're not allowed to go here. But in the game,
yeah, I can see that. That strikes me as a very demo thing because it seems in such stark contrast to the rest of the atmosphere of that game.
Right. Like if they were, the big thing that they did in Resident Evil 2 Remake was the like bike locks. Mm-hmm. Like everything was locked with bike locks. And so I figured that that's what those would be. So as soon as I saw one, I went up and I tried to interact with it. And I'm like, I'm sure I won't be able to solve this unless like I trial and error it. But it didn't even allow that. So I don't know, like that's a question that I have that's driving me to play the demo. Yeah, they did a good job with the demo. And the demo is fun enough.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're doing gangbusters right now, and with everything going on, with everybody on lockdown, it's in prime position to become a pretty major game. I'm excited because I can't wait to hear what everybody has to say about this one, because like when I was growing up, 3 was the game. Like in retrospect, I now understand that 2 really was, but for around me and for like what I knew about Resident Evil, like Resident Evil and Resident Evil 3 were like the thing that everybody was always talking about. So I'm curious to see if it has the same impact that 2 had. If it even has half the impact that 2 had, it'll be pretty rad, because 2 took off like a friggin' rocket.
Right, and that's the reason why we got 3 this way. But that's the other thing. I'm nervous that because of the popularity of 3 and the fact that it's Capcom, they're going to monetize the shit out of Resident Evil 3 in a way that they didn't for Resident Evil 2 Remake.
They do have that multiplayer mode. Now suddenly you want to buy some skins or some hats for your Resident Evil character?
I'm more upset about the fact that, because I know that it's monetization, I know it's trying to take advantage of me, but I would probably buy the deluxe version of RE3.
Okay.
I would have no problem doing that, because I did that for Resident Evil 2, because I had already beaten it on rental, and I found a deal where it was the price of the game with all of the added stuff. I would be interested in that, but the fact that a deluxe edition isn't available now makes me wonder how they're going to drip out the extra content. Because, like, I'd love to play this in noir mode. Of course, I'd play through it regular the first time, but I really would like to, like, the black and white version of Resident Evil 2 with them dressed like, I can't think of any freaking film noir
like Humphrey Bogart
right now.
Like Humphrey Bogart.
I was trying to think of the guy who's in Double
and...
Indemnity. I can't think of his name at all. But he's like my go-to. Like, he's who I see in my head right now. But yeah, so it makes me nervous for the monetization of it.
Yeah.
And speaking of monetization, is there anything else that you want to talk about regarding this demo? Because I have something I'd like to talk about that went on in the world.
No, Dev. What went on in the world?
GameStop and that whole fun thing.
Hullabaloo. Yeah, man. I got my email today letting me know that it's okay. They're still going to do curbside pickup.
Yeah, I have friends who work there who are like, I'm doing takeout orders for video games.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, it's weird, man, because like on the one hand, like you got to feel for the hourly worker right now that like if they're not in the store, they're not getting paid, right? But man, what a shit stance to take, GameStop.
I
When
mean, and the reason why, like, yes, you want to feel for the hourly worker, but when it's very obvious that it is the people up in on the top who are thinking about stock prices, like, if we're the only ones open, think of the business we can do. Like
exactly though,
that,
think of the number of people coming in and touching your employees all day, you gross. Sorry.
yeah, that like blatant disregard for human like safety and like employee safety is like straight up umbrella core. Like that's what it feels like.
I mean, like all it did was kind of prove to the world that GameStop is the company that critics have called it for years. Like, and I also I live by that idea that if you ever want to find a good GameStop critic, you find an ex-employee. Like they will tell you the dirt and why and everything that place has done. And like we've heard for decades now at this point that they are the devil, and they just like I said, they went ahead and just proved it.
Yeah, and that's just, I mean, it's small. I don't have like a lot of big things to say about it, but just the fact that it happened. The Say report stands with anybody who had to work at GameStop in these trying times. I will say that. Like,
Yeah, man.
I mean, my job is still considered essential because I work for the state, and they want people there. They want people there to like manage this crisis, and I understand that like that can be hard to understand, and a lot of people they're like, I can't believe you're still going to work, but like, I kind of have to be there. Like some of the stuff that I'm getting calls about, like, and what is going on. It is an unprecedented time in history right now.
Yeah, like one of the big things we're going to have to figure out is how do we, recover from this? And it's essential that people be in positions like the one that you're in to start figuring that out, because we can't wait until we're past it to figure out how do we move on. We need to hit the ground running as fast as we can. So like it is kind of key,
Yeah, we're
and like
talking contingency plans like out through August.
Yeah, and I'm still working, but that's because I have the privilege of having a job that I can work from home. I'm not going to an office all day, and in fact, haven't been for over a week now. Like they pulled the plug on it about 2 or 3 days before the rest of the state did, because we were in a position where we were like, you guys are already set up to work from home. We should just do it, and that was awesome for me, but like not everybody has that advantage.
Yeah, it's insane what's going on right now. But to call GameStop of all companies essential,
Yeah.
and to say that we need to stay open and we need to endanger not just our staff but those people who come in, because I mean, I didn't know how many fucking mailing lists I was on until COVID-19 came down the pike.
Yeah,
And
right.
every single mailing list I was a part of sent me an email telling me how they were reacting to the COVID-19 crisis. And the big deal and the big Megillah of GameStop was them saying, we have provided, hand sanitizer and sanitizing products to ensure a clean environment in our stores. And employees and store managers coming out and saying, that's a lie. We didn't get that. Like,
Yeah. Well, and I won't name names, but a company that rhymes with Paul Blart is just we were in there the other day trying to get some essential shopping done in the morning, and we were talking to the woman that was checking us out, and she was very happy to still be working, but also was like, but also when we asked them about hazard pay, all they did was send us a thing of hand sanitizer, and then she showed it to us, and it wasn't even like Purell, it was like off-brand hand sanitizer. So like it was like, that's mostly water in there and just a little bit of like liquid soap, right? Like that's not
yeah, it's not.
But yeah, so it's not great for a lot of these people that are in these positions where they have to be working these jobs, like to push that on people that don't even need to be there. It's It's gross.
Yeah, like I feel weird because I'm out working, right? And my campus, the campus where I work, they've shut down all food service, and what little food service they still have going on, we are not allowed to take part in. It's only for certain members of the community that are allowed to go there, which seems strange, I know, but they're trying to mitigate the spread of this, and we're there every day. So, like, visitors to the campus, they're allowed to go there, but we're not, so that we can still be there. As I say this, I feel kind of like, oh, that's gross. And it is gross. And made a step grosser by the fact that on Friday they emptied out all of the vending machines. So, like, we had nowhere to go.
Yeah.
But because, like, that's been the case for, like, a week and a half that we haven't been able to go to the place where we can usually get food, where I work. And so I've been going to a lot of fast food places because they're a place that has been open in the midst of all this.
Right.
And I will say, super impressed with, like, the gloves, and I see them wiping everything down. Like, it impresses me. But I also feel kind of bad being that schmuck going through the drive-thru. So I'm trying to be kind to those people. So I guess the thesis of this whole story is remember that the people who are out there and working, and not just the ones who are in the medical fields, because they should also be given the utmost respect at this time, but people in retail and food service, like, they're there not just because they have to be. They don't have any other choice. But like, no, that's it. That's the reason they're there. There's no other reason why they're there. So you should be kind to them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's not a time for bullshit, people. In the end.
Yeah. Yeah. That. Yeah. So GameStop just. I think they focused a beacon on it at all these companies that are like still being open, even though I don't need to go to Hobby Lobby right now.
Yeah, man. I mean, like, I can't even begin to comprehend some of the stories coming out of places like Florida and Hawaii of these people that have just shown up. Like, they were like, yeah, my work closed down, so I decided to go on vacation to this really populated beach. And it's just like, what are we doing? Like it's just.
I mean, but dude,
strange times,
I'm not trying to justify that because that's a stupid reaction to this. But what I will say is, when you look at the airline tickets, and I could get to Florida for $35, like, that incentivizes those people. Like, I'm not working, and a trip to Florida is $35.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
And I know that they need to stay open, right? Transportation is going to be a big deal in these coming weeks, but I don't know. It's unprecedented. I didn't really want to go off on this again, but looking at GameStop saying that, and I don't go to Hobby Lobby anyway, because they're like they're one of those bad companies for a number of reasons. But
sure.
My wife saw God in a dream, and he told her to stay open. Like, what is that?
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. It's strange friggin' times. Just you know, as we said last week with the actual medical side of this, you know, apply that to everything now. Like, do your research, see who's doing what for who, and then be a smart consumer. You know.
Yeah, and be kind to one another. Like, be excellent still. Like, that shouldn't stop. But, like, definitely be excellent to one another now more than ever. Now that the sweeping changes have affected the entire country, nay, the entire world.
Yeah. Oof.
Yeah, so I guess plot change. Let's go with something else a little disappointing to some. Not disappointing necessarily to me. I don't know your feelings on it. Why don't we talk about Thomas Brady?
Oh man, yeah, sure. Dude, I don't know why a change of team has to be such a dramatic thing. It happens all the friggin' time in sports.
Right. But I mean, I understand this one. I understand Tom Brady going from the Patriots to any other team is a big deal, because the other thing that doesn't happen is someone playing for a team for 20 years, right? Derek
Right.
Jeter is the only other person who jumps to mind who played with one team his entire career. I mean, even if it's the Evil Empire.
Yeah, I mean, like, even if there's people that like played for a while, like Jordan with the Bulls, or I mean, even Bird with the Celtics, right? Like they started on other teams and they found themselves on other teams at points in their career, even if they did come home and things like that. I mean, like I get that. I get why it's a big change. It's like when Kobe came back to basketball and all that. Like I get why it's important to talk about, but for people to be outright offended by this particular move, that is what is mind blowing to me.
Yeah. I mean, personal, if I were Tom Brady, and I mean all of my experiences, but also one of the greatest football players of all time, uh, I would probably have like quit. I probably would have retired.
Instead of going to a different team.
Instead of going to a different team.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, age as a factor. He's going to be 43 when the next season starts. Just like legacy as a factor, like nobody. You're never going to be able to take 6 Super Bowls and like I think it was 9 Super Bowl appearances away from him. Right? You're never going to be able to take that away from Tom Brady. I gotta stop calling him Thomas. That's just sort of how I upset these people who are upset by it. It's a bit of trolling, I guess you could say. Like, you're never gonna take away what he did, but like, if he goes to Tampa Bay and plays for 1 year and it's the worst season of football that he's ever had, like, that's your swan song.
Yeah.
That's your last track on the album, buddy.
Yeah, man, but that kind of fear, like you gotta, as an athlete, you have to fight that fear every season, right? Like, what if this is the season where I fucking whiff it and I have to quit after that and I go out on a shit season? So, like, if that thought ever crossed his mind, which honestly with Tom Brady, I don't even know if he could even think that way anymore. But if that thought even crossed his mind, like he's probably been punching back those thoughts at least for the most of his early part of his career, right? Like
I mean, he's probably been punching back those thoughts since the last Super Bowl that they won.
mm-hmm.
Like it was a little surprising that, like Gronk, he didn't go out on top, and then they had that great first like run of the season where they were undefeated, and then they ended up like just kind of shitting the bed in the back half of the 2019 football season. So like I could also see him feeling like I need to redeem myself, and I can also see the Patriots like, yeah, but you're not going to do that here. Like it's not like you should have won last year. Look at how well you did in the beginning. What the fuck happened, Tom?
So you think this is a little bit like forced retirement on their part? Like, look, like you need to stop playing. And he's like, I don't want to. Well, they're like, well, you're not going to play for us.
Actually, I feel like, and I get it, and it plays into that whole idea of forced retirement. He wanted them to romance him maybe a little bit. I think he wanted them to show that they wanted him there still. Mm-hmm. And from a business standpoint, it'd be difficult to do that if I were the Patriots. If I were the franchise of the Patriots and like staring down the barrel of a 43-year-old quarterback, one of the oldest quarterbacks is going to be playing in the league, and saying, do we bring this guy back? Do we extend his contract another year, another couple seasons, just because he means so much to our fans? Or, I mean, at the end of the day, it's about winning, right? You need to do what's best for the team to win.
Yeah.
And Tom Brady, as much as like he has all of those 19 years under his belt showing how good he can be, if his last season was an audition to like get the part in the 2020 football season, he shit the bed.
Yeah, man. It's always kind of sad, for lack of a better word, to watch these guys that like clearly love playing the game push themselves to like keep playing, right? But like all I can think of is Favre, right? Like you either retire a Gronk or stick around long enough to become a Brett Favre. Like, and it's such a sad like state of things to like watch to think back on those last few years of Favre's career, especially when he kept leaving and coming back, and people were just like, stay away, right? Like.
Yeah.
And that was Green Bay, right? Like Green Bay, they love their fucking team. For them to turn to you and say, "Hey, maybe not so much this year," like that says something.
Yeah, you're not wrong about that. And also, like, to look at someone like Peyton Manning, who like his winning season with the Indianapolis Colts, and then going over to the Denver Broncos. I mean, it makes sense when a Colt grows up, they become a Bronco, but
Nice.
but it is one of these situations where like he hadn't played in Indianapolis his entire career. Like, it really is, speaking of unprecedented, it's strange to see someone who's played with a single franchise their entire career and then go somewhere else. And not with like at least some time away from the game. Like when Jordan came back and played for the Wizards, as fucking weird as that was, he had retired. Like we thought no more Michael Jordan.
Right.
They made Chaos in the Windy City for the Super Nintendo, and every basketball player that you rescue, because that's the point of that game, is saving basketball players from an evil mad scientist who's trying to suck away their basketball prowess. In a lot of ways, a prequel to Space Jam.
Prequel my ass. Space Jam just stole everything.
Yeah, they definitely did. But yeah, it's like they're like, I thought you were playing baseball, Mike. And it's like that's the thing, is that like he was out of it. But then he missed the game, and that's why he came back and played for the Wizards of all teams before returning to the Bulls. And like, I don't know, like you don't go play a season in Tampa and then get invited back to the Patriots. I mean, first of all, it's not basketball. Which
no, and on top of that, there's he burned some bridges. Like it's pretty clear that he burned some bridges, right? Like so good luck, man. Like all the power to you, but man, to light a match and throw it on your way out the door is a fucking statement. And it just kind of, how do we put this delicately? It shows him to be the diva that we all kind of always knew he was.
Oh, you mean, I don't know. I think this is your story. Driving down the highway, there's Tom Brady.
Yeah, when Kevin and I saw a car and somebody flicked us off and it had a Super Bowl ring on it. And when I got in front of us, the fucking plate on the car said Super Bowl #1. And then, like, lo and behold, when we got up next to him again, we realized it was long-haired Tom Brady.
Yeah, like, I don't know. Like that's a story that sticks with me that you told me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know. Like I would believe
that would have had to have been 2006, 2007, because like it was only after his first major win. So like yeah. Shit, man. Yeah, no, I like, what can you say? For a guy that has brought so much heat and attention to the Patriots, to then act like this on his way out the door, like the Pats have stuck by him through some pretty serious shit.
Pretty serious shit. Yes.
And so, like, to then turn around and do this is definitely hard to watch, you know. And it's one of those things that, like, in a lot of ways, I think the reason that a lot of people feel burned right now is exactly that. Is they're thinking, I stuck by you when people said that you act like this, and now you're acting like this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
nailed it. He nailed it. This guy, he nailed it. That's why I do a show with him, because he nailed it. But I guess the big question that I had for you is, do you care? Does it affect your life at all?
Honestly,
one of these people?
You know what it's going to do for me? It's going to make my life better, because I live in and have lived in for the last 15 years of my life a part of the country that is not a big Brady fan, because of some of those exact things that we talked about. And I know that I spend entire football seasons listening to people like ribbing me and like trying to have serious conversation with me about like supporting a team that gets caught doing things or supporting a guy that gets caught doing things. And I got my own thoughts and opinions on that and my own feelings about that. But like, I don't have to, it's not why I want to watch sports, right? Like I don't want to watch sports to have to try and defend people. I'm trying to watch sports to have a good time. And so I think I'm going to get a good season or two out of this. where people are actually once again like kind of opening their arms to the Patriots again. Because man, I can't tell you how nice that's going to feel after over a decade of having to try and like defend myself just because I grew up in a place.
Yeah, that sounds terrible. What you just described sounds like a bit of a personal hell. And I'm sorry you had to go through it, even though I don't think I ever put you in that position. I mean, not for being a Patriots fan or being from New England. I know I've put you in bad situations before. It's part of the show. It's part of what the show is. Yeah, I think that's it. Like I see all these people and this like outrage, and I'm like, at the end of the day, I still gotta wake up and go to work, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, also
I can't
like
live and die
really,
by the Patriots.
yeah, and it puts it in perspective when the whole world goes on fucking lockdown because of a disease. So like like you know what I mean? That's the other side of all of this is that all of these people that were really kind of getting fired up about this, I, I got more important things to worry about right now, you know?
And in a lot of ways, I think that may have been why he did it, thinking
Maybe.
that like the news cycle is going to swathe over it, and and it has in a bunch of ways. We're probably the last people to weigh in on the Tom Brady thing.
Yeah, if we're
Because
talking
it's
about a
been-
topic, you can bet it's dead.
Yeah, because it's been at least 96 hours since that announcement with us recording.
Hmm.
And in those 96 hours, so many bad things have happened
Yeah.
that like really do put it into perspective. So I had two other things I wanted to visit. They're quick things. They're not going to be like forever things. But I do want to turn the mic to you again if there's anything else that you want to talk about, CG owned.
Oh, right now it's just all about surviving out here, you know, between the pandemic and everybody being locked up inside, and then suddenly our house is no longer being safe because they started to fall down around us.
Yeah, you had an earthquake happen.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I didn't. We were kind of going through our own personal earthquake in New England at the time.
Yeah, no, man, it was weird. Never been in an earthquake before, but now I've been through two, technically. We had an aftershock on Sunday night, last night, that was a 4 on the scale, not as big as the 5.7 that hit. But the biggest earthquake to hit Utah since 1992, 93.
Yep, 92.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a pretty big deal around here. Luckily, people are actually weirdly kind of prepared for this because they live on a fault line. It's not an active one. So it's not one that they have to worry about too often, but things like houses being built with like earthquake-proof foundation and stuff is actually a thing out here. I wasn't aware of that until this incident occurred. Yeah, so things were a little wild. Now, none of this is to say that I think my house is earthquake-proof in any way. We just lucked out that we were just far enough away that the impact was only around a 5, which is enough to make the walls sway, but nothing really damaging happened. I think the most that happened was like a book fell off a shelf. But it was wild, man. It was friggin' wild. And like, to even begin to describe it, I'd have to start off by telling you that I had barely just woken up and was sitting on the toilet. So like, it was almost like something out of like a Three Stooges sketch. Like, it was crazy because the world was moving around me and I was sitting there like, am I crazy or is that curtain like fluttering? Like, I was like, I out loud exclaimed like, well, that's not how a house works. Like, that's not how a house move. Like, what is going on?
I mean, I think my favorite moment from it is I saw that it had happened and immediately reached out to you, and your response was, "I'll get back to you in a minute. We just had an earthquake." And I'm like, that's kind of all I needed was that
Yeah,
was a response to my text. I wasn't thinking we would plan the next episode, but your response is so like, not only is he okay, he's on top of it. There's a reason why he's the Quake Master, and it's not because he's good at that PC game.
Yeah, man. Like, so, you know, we did some pretty basic stuff. We made sure that the cars weren't in the garage. We had a couple of bug out bags like ready in case anything too crazy happened. We checked in with everybody, like immediately got online to figure out exactly what had happened. And again, like they're super prepared for this shit. There's one thing that this country has down. It's some earthquake preparedness because, man, I saw a map a couple of days ago of the earthquake and like the waves across the United States. Did you know that there's like seismic readings like everywhere?
Yeah, There was an earthquake along the East Coast in 2011. I was working in an office building as a temp at the time, and it shook the building. And that was when I'm like, oh, I've never experienced this before. And I did that deep dive to see that, like, oh, we are on top of this. Yeah. This is something that, like, we realize that we settled in a part of the world that, like, is literally angry. We kind of settled on the ulcer of the planet Earth.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, it's weird because, like, at the end of the day, like, what happened was an extremely natural thing. And that up against what's going on with COVID, which, like, is also a natural thing, but it feels like it's really being like, what's the word I'm looking for? Inflated, I guess, by the fact that, like, humans are idiots. You know what I mean? Like the situations that we are now in, we're currently in because of a bunch of people running around like chickens with their head cut off when it comes to COVID-19, right? Complete opposite of that is like earthquake preparedness. The fact that we were super prepared and this thing happened, we can't stop it from happening, but we can mitigate the damage. That was just like, it was insane being involved in two of those crises at once and seeing how one was handled and one was and the other. It was just it was night and day.
Yeah, that sounds weird, wild, wacky.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Oof. Siegen. Well, I'm glad that you survived and everything is okay. Especially in the wake of this crisis. Imagine if what?
You said that like you knew of somebody out there that may not be.
No. But it's just one of those situations where, like, especially, it's good that we were prepared for something like that, right? Mm-hmm. Because that, on top of, we all are familiar with Exodus, right? Even if we've just seen the Charlton Heston movie,
right?
One of the reasons the 10 plagues of Egypt were so devastating is that God didn't let up.
Yeah.
Like, it was supposed to be a thumb on Pharaoh's back, like, let my people go.
Right.
So if in the midst of plague, you also had to deal with earthquake.
Yeah,
and,
I know.
Yeah.
Plenty of people out here that are like, if I see a locust, I'm running for the freaking hills. So, like, yeah.
I think there are locusts somewhere in the world right now.
Oh, no.
I don't know. It's weird. It's wacky and wild. And speaking of the Bible, the king of segues here, I rewatched a little movie this weekend. Do you care to venture a guess as to what that film was, Siegen?
Was it the Bible?
No.
Oh.
It was Yesterday.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, a movie I didn't really love the first time, but I kind of wanted to give a second chance because I saw it in the worst possible, like, situation to see a movie, which is a GoFobo free screening. Really, any sort of free screening.
Yeah.
Where people are given tickets to go see the movie, and you get the dregs of society. People who have probably never been to a theater without, like, and paid for their ticket.
Free.
Like,
yeah. They only go if they get to go for free, right?
Yeah. So it was like, and I wanted to confirm that it wasn't just the setting that influenced my decision. And also, I mean, humans, we're complex machines. So maybe something about my mental state was off at the time. And so I wanted to give Yesterday another shot. And I always knew that I wanted to give Yesterday another shot, especially knowing what the twist was, which, spoilers, there is no twist. And that's sort of my problem with it.
Right.
But watching it again, it's actually hyper biblical. And in a way that I didn't expect at all.
Weird.
Right before he gets in the accident and the world blacks out and everybody forgets about the Beatles, Lily James, who plays the female lead, Ellie, says to him, you know, you can't quit music. And he says, let's face it, Ellie, it would take a miracle for me to become successful. And that miracle comes. Like, God is up there and he's like, oh, this guy's losing faith. I'm going to make everybody forget about
line.
I'm gonna erase the Beatles from everybody's memory, and this guy can finally be famous. And it doesn't feel like, and it feels like it could just be a one-off, but then after he wakes up again, she says to him, you know, God was upset that you said you were going to quit music. So that's why all this happened. And I'm just like,
so he's just being tested. You think this is just another parable?
I think it's a parable. I think that this film is a biblical parable. And
I mean, like, anything is fucking possible with that movie. Like, it's again, wacky and wild is the theme of this episode, I think.
yeah, it's just, but like to actually watch it and know there's never gonna be any like third act thing where he's in a coma.
Right.
Like, this is just the world now.
Yeah, no reveal. It's been a dream the whole time.
Yeah, it sort of was like, oh damn, like God gave this guy this test. What the hell? How do I feel about that?
Yeah, I was gonna say, how do you feel about that? Did it change your opinion on the movie at all? Like,
I still don't like the movie.
I still don't.
I know. And not even like the biblical trappings are all over it because the finale of yesterday, it's been about a year, so I don't feel, I mean, and we already dug into this movie heavy. He calls up Ed Sheeran and he's like, hey, can I do something at your show at Wembley Stadium? And Ed Sheeran agrees. And then his manager, played by Kate McKinnon, who, hand to God, ironic, I forgot was in this movie until I rewatched it. I'm going to just say that. I forgot that a whole main character, kind of the primary antagonist, was in this film.
Yeah.
She lives in Tony Stark's house, for Christ's sake. I forgot she's in the movie.
So he reaches out to John the Baptist there.
And that is exactly, the manager greets him and says, all right, so John the Baptist is finishing up. They're ready for their Messiah. And I'm just like, holy frick, how did I not see this? And the reason why I didn't see it was because I was like hyper focused on the fact that this film is going to be what this film would be, right? What this film written by Richard Curtis usually is. Yeah. What About Time is. Like, the time travel is real in About Time, but like, I didn't think the Beatles thing was going to be real in this one.
Yeah. No, that's true. I forgot that, like, that is kind of a thing for him. Like, if there's a conceit to his movies, he sticks to it. Which you got to appreciate. Like, if you're gonna go big, right?
Right. But I mean, also it really ties into the fact, and I've done research on the film after watching it again, that like parts they cut out of the script is that everybody lost memories. Like the final line of, that's not the final line of the movie. There's a montage after it that I had forgotten about because the whole "who's Harry Potter" line like just was such a punch in the gonads. Like after what this whole movie was, the initial script planned that line to go to Ellie. And she says to him, you must feel a little bit like, you know, Harry Potter when he defeats Voldemort. And he goes, who? So he doesn't have any memory of Harry Potter anymore. So then, like, there's further reaching implications of what this flash did to the world and how everybody was affected by it.
So, like, everybody gets a thing that they now get to be famous for because...
Like, yeah, that's what it felt like. Like, it felt like, I mean, on one level, it feels like, oh, maybe we can get a sequel. And Ellie becomes the writer of the Harry Potter books in that sequel.
Do you know how, like, fucking sad that makes me, though? Like, okay, man, that makes me sad, and I don't want to get into it.
But get into it. What the heck? I mean,
what happens to these famous people then? Are they then just they're doomed to normal lives? Is that what the deal is?
So,
like...
I mean, you meet John Lennon in the movie. Mm-hmm. And he has lived a fabulous life. He worked on the seas. He found a woman that he loved. He's alive. He's in his 70s. So he never got famous, so he never got assassinated because of Catcher in the Rye. I wonder if Catcher in the Rye exists in that world.
Catcher in the what?
Oh, don't do that. Don't be that person. I'm so happy you picked up the cue. But yeah, so like you only see John Lennon. And again, the original script showed scenes with Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr to show that they did just kind of live normal lives. But the fact that it is sort of It's a Wonderful Life, that's the film that my mother says, like, you're describing It's a Wonderful Life. That's what the whole thing feels like. Because it felt like, and it still feels like, most of the movie feels like he has lost all of these things that mattered to him. Because the Beatles aren't there, Oasis isn't there, Coca-Cola isn't there, and cigarettes aren't there. And they're all like his vices or things that he took for granted. And it seems like it's pushing him to this thing that, like, this close female friend of yours who you never think of as more than just a friend, like, if you don't realize that she means more than that to you, you might lose her. Like, it feels like that's going to be the lesson of it. Right. But no, it's a biblical fucking test from God to see if he can, like Noah, build an ark of Beatles songs to make the world a better place. Because that's another thing that was cut out before Richard Curtis got his hands on the screenplay. The world was going to be in like, not dire straits, but like not as good a condition. Like, it was going to truly be a world without the Beatles, like, since the 60s. And he was going to, like, spread a message of peace, love, and joy. Also, he wasn't going to find success in the beginning, which I always thought was a more interesting, like, story. Because I read a very good comment about the Beatles this weekend that the Beatles aren't good. It was just music that was being played the first decade women were allowed to be horny. And it's like, that's like, that, I mean, because the Beatles definitely hold, I love Beatles songs, right? I know you love the Beatles songs, but I can see that from, like, a music appreciation, music theory place that, like, you know, like, part of their popularity and their place in the zeitgeist came from the fact that, you know, we allowed people to act that way about them in a way that we didn't really allow up to that point.
For sure. Yeah, no, like, Beatles Mania was really kind of the first time that people were allowed to be manic about a music band, right? Like in any fashion. It was just not the way that you handled fandom before that. So it's not an incorrect thought, it's an incomplete thought as far as I'm concerned. Because there is something to be said about, like, the musicality of the Beatles and all that. But no, saying
it as, like, a comment, like a one-off comment to, like, get laughs or something. Yes, but it inspired me to, like, go a little bit deeper with it. Yeah. Because there's some truth to it. Like, I don't want to downplay what the Beatles were, especially since their songs, like, transcend still, right? You have a movie about their music in 2019, and people are excited to go see it. You have them come out as a rock band title in 2009, and people are excited to buy it and play it. But yeah, so it's just one of those things where I'm like, oh, that gave me a thought, and it's something I wanted to bring to you, and it's another musing for isolation. Why were the Beatles so popular? And because of the Beatles' popularity being the, like, linchpin, the apex, where it is in history, could we ever see something to that level again in our world?
Avatar. I don't know. Yeah, man. I mean, like, it'll be interesting where we are with all of this sort of stuff, you know, in the coming times, because shit's gonna get crazier and wackier and wilder. But
so I saw Green Book, but we don't need to talk about Green Book because I have a lot of thoughts on that. But I finally saw it, and not thumbs up, not thumbs down, but my thumb is, like, in the middle, ready to go either way about it.
It was a surprise win that year, so I'm not surprised to hear that there's maybe not much behind it. But
not a super surprise win when I looked at the nominees. Like Black Klansman or Black Panther, maybe the only other two that I think should have stood against it. Yeah. But then when those are the three that the Academy are considering, I understand why Green Book wins.
For the Academy, yeah, for sure.
But yeah, Green Book, you know, since we're all stuck inside and we can't go out to the movies, the family has decided that they're going to have one night a week where they watch movies as if we were in the theater. And that's what got me to finally do it, because it was my father's choice to watch that film.
All right, man. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm glad one of us saw it.
Yeah, right? Especially since it's made by Peter Farrelly, a good old Rhode Island boy.
Yeah. Oh
But
man.
yeah, so in light of that, and the fact that we are watching movies at the Decker House on Thursday nights, it's my week to pick, and there's just too many good movies. So if you want to get me on Twitter and let me know what I should make my family watch, you can find me at Devin D. Decker.
Yeah, and if you want to hit me up so that we can talk about Devin's dastardly comments about the Colts halfway through this episode, you can find me at Siege versus the World.
I don't think what I said about the Colts was too bad. I don't think in the pantheon of things I could have said about Colorado.
About the friggin' Colts.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize. I forget that you were a Colts fan from way back. Ever since what, Three Ninjas?
Okay.
All right. Well, remember, it's the time of crisis. Be excellent to each other. And William, please take us home.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devin Decker and Stephen Serwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.